What's good, YouTube? It's Justice I Used to Be Pay, and today I'm back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about why I don't know if rap ever reaches these heights again. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It helps me out a ton. There have been a lot of conversations surrounding Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance. Whether you loved it, hated it, or just are somewhere in the middle, it's been the topic of conversation and controversy. But what I think is really missing from these conversations is the bigger picture here and what this really means for rap as a genre, because as a genre, that was a huge milestone. This is the peak of popularity within the English-speaking world, the Super Bowl. It doesn't get any bigger than the Super Bowl halftime performance as a platform for an American music genre. And after 50 years, rap has finally not only done that platform, but conquered it completely. And it wasn't as, a featured act, not as somebody who was just there to do one song and popped out for a quick appearance. This was as the solo main performer, the one, the uno, the only one, the headliner. That's what we finally got. Of course, SZA was there as a guest, but she was not the headliner. She was not the uno. That was Kendrick Lamar. For so long, the Super Bowl has been like the mainstream entertainment zeitgeist of America. Like annually, there's no bigger event in America than the Super Bowl. For lack of a better phrasing, it's the Super Bowl of pop culture. And it didn't matter what rap did over the last 50 years or so. It just didn't matter. It was never deemed as big enough or good enough for the Super Bowl. It was just never enough for the wide American masses. And that has finally changed. And honestly, this is gonna make me sound like a Drake hater saying this. And I knew it when I wrote it down, but I still have to say it regardless. I'm genuinely shocked and actually kind of happy that Drake wasn't the first rapper to do the Super Bowl, because I thought he was going to be the first solo rapper for sure. I thought that there wasn't even a conversation. If a rapper was ever going to get a solo headlining performance at the Super Bowl, it would be Drake. And it was because obviously Drake has been the #1 rapper in terms of popularity for the last 10 years or so, but also because he's just super acceptable to a wide variety of audiences. Drake's not going to go up there and offend a whole bunch of people. Drake's not going to go up there and, make it so a whole section of people might feel singled out and they might not get it. Drake is very acceptable by the masses, and that's one of his gifts. That's one of his talents. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I felt like he would have been rap's representation to go up there and, not be too urban and, don't offend certain crowds of people. So the fact that it was Kendrick Lamar as the first ever solo rapper to do the halftime performance was really impressive to me. Now, Drake does play a part here regardless, and I'll get to that later on down the line. But still, just the fact that it was Kendrick Lamar, who's somebody that is, as unapologetic as it gets in terms of where he stands, in terms of his ideologies and politically and everything that you could really think of that could offend a lot of people. And then he went out there and still put in a lot of symbolism and imagery to his performance, makes it really incredible in my opinion. Not only did we get rap in the Super Bowl halftime performance as the solo act, but we got rap beef in the Super Bowl. And after watching that performance, I don't want to hear about any other beef. I'm sorry, I don't care, all right? That's the biggest. That one, Drake and Kendrick, it's the biggest. I don't want to hear about any other beef. I'm sorry, shout out to Nas and Jay-Z, shout out to Biggie and Pac, shout out to all the other beefs, but you're not touching that. The Super Bowl halftime performance, Euphoria and Not Like Us were performed in front of the entire American audience. Literally live. Over 130 million people were watching that performance. I don't care what anyone has to say about any other beef ever. This is clearly the biggest. I don't care what you have to say. Biggie, Nas, Tupac, whatever, whoever you want to bring up, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it. And I can't wait for in 20 years when the young kids are telling me about which of these new rappers are beefing, and I can sit there and be the old head and be like, y'all don't know nothing about no beef. See, when it was beef back in my day, they handled it at the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was the stage of the beef. The biggest English-speaking platform that you can go on musically was the stage for a rap beef. I don't care about any, I'm sorry, in terms of popularity, that blew every other beef ever out of the water. For a quick takeaway on the actual performance, I actually did enjoy it. I know a lot of people were kind of iffy, or they didn't really like it, or they were just kind of sitting there, but I enjoyed a lot of the performance. I enjoyed most of the performance. I enjoyed especially the imagery of Kendrick, playing the great American game at the great American game, like quite literally. Now, I will say in terms of like the set list, I could understand where some people are frustrated because Kendrick did not go out there and play all of his biggest songs and biggest, bangers that he possibly could have. He didn't just go out there and give you like a Kendrick's greatest hits performance, which is typically what people do at the Super Bowl because, the point is to like get everybody engaged, having fun and stuff. And he did perform some stuff from GNX. So I can understand from a set list perspective some people being a little bit upset, but still, regardless, I enjoy most of the songs on GNX, so I enjoyed the performance regardless. I will say that he did definitely sacrifice a bit of the fun for a little bit more imagery and meaning, just a little bit. It wasn't like a super crazy political performance where you leave it going, oh my gosh, that was the most revolutionary thing I've ever seen in my life. But still, he definitely did sacrifice some of the possible fun aspects for a little bit a little bit more of a deeper meaning in his performance. And honestly, that's like a perfect encapsulation of who Kendrick is and pretty much always has been as an artist. Yet I think an important question to have following the event is, when is the next time this happens again? Because in terms of how the performance went over with the masses, it was at best a 50-50 split, and American culture definitely seems to be heading in a much more conservative direction. And I really don't have to explain to you the disdain that right-wing ideologies typically have for rap. So with rap already having few and far in between opportunities to actually perform at that Super Bowl halftime show, and this performance not going over with all the fans as some amazing thing that they were just so excited to see and can't wait for the next time it happens, I start to think to myself, like, I don't know when the next time a rapper gets to be the solo performer at the Super Bowl is. The standard to get to the Super Bowl halftime performance as a rapper is just damn near impossible to meet. Like, obviously, we've had years with rappers in the Super Bowl before, and even a full show of just rappers, like that year when they had Dr. Dre, Lapdog, 50 Cent, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, and Mary J. Blige. But for Kendrick to get to the Super Bowl performance as a solo performer, he had to have literally a generational year in rap. Like, he had to be the hottest rapper in the world. He had to drop an album that sold hundreds of thousands in the first week and had a multitude of top 10 Billboard Hot 100 hits. It had like 7 of the top 10 when the album first debuted. Oh, and also he had to just, win the biggest rap beef of all time. He had to have all of those things to get this solo performance in the Super Bowl halftime show and have Not Like Us be a cultural banger. Like, those are not very easy standards to reach, even though, again, rap is one of the biggest genres in the world and oftentimes is the biggest genre in America. Rappers just have to work like 2 or 3 times as hard to get a spot like that Super Bowl performance. Trying to look to the future to see who could possibly be the next rap solo performance at the Super Bowl, I think there's just really 2 requirements that need to be considered. For one, the person needs to be nuclear hot that year, like Kendrick was this year, or I guess technically last year, or you need to just be always culturally relevant, like Lapdog. Another requirement to be met is that the rapper must be at least a good performer. Maybe not necessarily a great one, but at least a good one. And that isn't a criteria that really a lot of rappers meet alone, forget even having to be super hot that year as well. So with those 2 standards, there really aren't too many rappers to choose from. Like, let's just set the standard of having an album that sold over 300K in the last 7 years, 300K first week, while being a good performer. That pretty much just leaves us with like Drake, Travis Scott, Kendrick Lamar, Tyler, the Creator, Kanye West, Eminem, and J. Cole. I know Drake seems to, again, be the easiest choice, but for Drake, I just really can't see that happening now, as he was really the target of this year's Super Bowl, and Jay-Z is one of the main people in charge of picking Super Bowl performers, and he and Drake have an, let's just say, estranged relationship at best, so I really just don't see that happening. Travis Scott, while he is one of the biggest in rap, he's just not as hot as you probably need to be, at least at the moment, in order to get that spot. He also isn't very much of a media darling anymore after some events that I really don't need to bring up. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So he's kind of lost a lot of his favor in mainstream media. Now, Tyler, the Creator, is a wild card. He is, because he is probably the best performer that you can get. But when it comes to having like a full connect with the entirety of the American audience, I definitely could see where there would be some disconnects, and maybe it just wouldn't be a thing that really clicks off really well with the entirety of America like you kind of need to do at the Super Bowl. Now, Kanye, honestly, Kanye would be the best option for a rapper to perform at the Super Bowl. Like, he quite literally has everything you need. He has a whole bunch of hits. He has a whole bunch of popularity. Everyone knows who he is. He is probably one of the better performers. He has a lot of creativity that he can put into stage design and a whole bunch of makeup for performance. Like, he has pretty much everything that you possibly could need, except the mental stability to be given a live microphone in front of the entire American audience. Like, giving Kanye a live mic at the Super Bowl.
I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
Is just asking for quite literally disaster. Like, that's just never going to happen. He's never going to get an opportunity like that again in his life. So we really don't even have to really consider Kanye at this point. Maybe some rapper will have like an insane rise to prominence in the next decade or so, but I can't predict that at the moment. I really don't know who that would be. What I see as the most likely solution or the most likely outcome is probably a legacy act in rap, kind of like Dr. Dre and Lapdog. It'd be funny if it was Jay-Z, but I feel like that's just a little too egotistical to pick yourself as the solo performer at the Super Bowl. But I could see him being a performer at the Super Bowl if it is him and Beyonce, and that could be like kind of like the final bow on both of their careers, really. I could definitely see them doing the Super Bowl. But if I were to bet all the money in my bank account, okay, all $22 on who I think would be the next solo rap performer in the Super Bowl, I would easily pick Eminem. Like, it wouldn't even be a thought. I would just, for sure, bet all my money on Eminem. Now, I know that's the answer that some people probably don't want to hear, but I feel like that's the most obvious and easiest choice, because not only is Eminem pretty much always going to be culturally relevant, but he's still like super hot. Like, he still drops an album and it'll sell like 300K first week, 27 years or however long he is into his career. Like, he's still kicking and competing with some of the biggest names in rap today as some of the highest sellers. So for sure, I think it would be Eminem. And in terms of like not wanting to offend a whole bunch of people, I know that's like the opposite of Eminem, but for just some strange reason, Eminem as a rapper is just a lot more palpable to people who really don't like rap. I can't really quite put my finger on it why Eminem is just so much more accepted than any other rapper by people who don't like rap, even though he's like super vulgar, he says a bunch of crazy stuff, super controversial. I just can't quite put my finger on why Eminem is just more accepted by the masses who really don't like rap. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'll figure that out one day. But it's kind of crazy because Eminem hates Donald Trump. So it's like even the people that would be on the side that like Eminem is advocating against, like he hates Donald Trump. He's made that clear over the last 10 years or so. They still like the guy. Fun side story. I know I'm getting off track, but whatever. I was working this job, right? There's this guy, very clearly a Trump supporter, but I'm in the car with him. We're chilling. It's cool. Nothing crazy, right? He's like, yeah, I like the NFL. Like, who's your team? I'm like, oh, yeah, the Cardinals. Unfortunately, I'm from Arizona. So I'm like, oh, yeah, the Cardinals. Who's your team? Now, in my mind, I know this guy's from California. So I'm thinking, oh, he's a 49er fan, of course. Or maybe he's a Ram or, Charger fan, but obviously 49er fan. And he goes, oh, my favorite team's the Texans. And so I'm like, the Texans, like, why the hell is your, maybe I'm thinking, okay, maybe his favorite player, maybe he, has a brother or something. I don't know. Why would you be a fan of the Texans when you live in California? So I'm like, I know you didn't bandwagon to the Texans because why would anyone bandwagon to the Texans? That makes no sense. And he just looks at me and he goes, yeah, man, that whole situation with Kaepernick when he took that knee, man, I just really didn't like it. So I stopped rooting for the team. I just met this guy, by the way. This man told me that he stopped rooting for the 49ers because Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem. He was like, yeah, just the disrespecting of the flag. I just really didn't like it, man. So I had to pick a new team. This guy loved Eminem. I was sitting there with my mind like, what? Like, he didn't really like rap, but he loved Eminem, but he hated the fact that Colin Kaepernick kneeled during the national anthem. But Eminem literally kneeled during his performance at the Super Bowl, like in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick. Like, my mind was blown, but that's just a short story to get you to understand how Eminem is accepted by everyone, even though he advocates against what these people look like. It was the most mind-blowing thing ever that this dude stopped being a fan of the 49ers because Kaepernick kneeled during the national anthem, but at the same time, he loved Eminem. If Eminem ever does like a retirement tour and a retirement album, or maybe just the Super Bowl goes to Detroit for a year, I definitely could see him being that Super Bowl halftime performer. But outside of that, really, I just don't know the next time we'll see a solo rapper in the Super Bowl halftime show. Like, if someone were to get that spot in the next 5 years or so, and it's just somebody that I can't predict at the moment, I think that would be really cool. But outside of that, I just don't really see it. And yes, I'm going to use a buzzword here. I think as a culture buzzword, I think we need to appreciate what we just saw in that Super Bowl. Whether you hated it, loved it, whatever, however you feel about Kendrick, Drake, whatever, I think you need to appreciate what we just watched a few weeks ago, because that was truly incredible. It was a crazy moment in rap history. That was the Super Bowl being the host of really the finale of a rap beef that's been building for the last 10 years or so. That has never happened in rap's entire history, and it might not ever happen again. So regardless of how you feel, what your alliance is, how you, whatever, I'm Team Drake, Team Kendrick, whatever you got to say, I think we all as a collective just really need to appreciate what happened a few weeks ago, even if your boy was the target, you know. But regardless, if you made it this far, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It helps me out a ton. I go by the name of Pay. Peace.